my name's Paul Jeal. I'm the game director on Formula 1 2013. The big new feature for this year is classic content, historic content, which is something that we've been working on in the background for a few years, but it's really been, well, it seems like a huge journey now in terms of licensing the deals, finding all the drivers, clearing the sponsors. So that's something that we've finally been able to unleash this year. And then obviously improvements to the 2013 game as well. Like you said, we have got that chance to go back and rework some features that have been in previous years. So things like AI improvements, weather improvements, tyre improvements, handling improvements. We've got a mid-session save now, so what we were finding is a lot of people were enjoying the longer races, but they just didn't have time, an hour and a half set aside to game anymore. They like to game in 20-minute sessions or 30-minute sessions or maybe just an hour. So now you can save a race at any point, and more people can get to experience more of the factors that makes F1 pretty cool. It's pretty deep, to be honest. I mean, one thing that we didn't want to do is just offer a handful of cars in a time trial experience. That's something that's been done before, and you know, at Codemasters we like to innovate and try and really push the boat out. And we've done that this year with the classic content. I mean, it's really difficult early on to try and replicate a particular season. You know, all you took is one or two people that you couldn't contact or that had deals in place with other teams, and you couldn't do that. So we ended up thinking, what do we really want to do? And what we really wanted to do was celebrate the history of the sport. You know, two particular eras when I was growing up that were called 1980s and 1990s, and just have a mixture of cars and drivers from that era. So in terms of cars, it's 5 cars in the 1980s and 6 cars in the 1990s, and there's an original driver who drove that car for that team, and then there's a sort of invited guest driver, former legend. So for example, Michael Schumacher comes back to Ferrari and, you know, drives in this kind of showcase event. Each of the periods, 1980s, 1990s, is kind of date stamped in terms of treatment and on-screen text, etc. So it kind of feels like you're progressing through time as you're experiencing the different game modes. I would certainly hope so, yeah. I mean, I think we'll let our licensing department get their breath and dye their hair back to the natural colour, I think. But I think it's definitely here to stay. I think the appetite's out there at the moment. I think there are so many cool areas of questions we're getting already. What about the 50s? What about the 60s? What about this driver? What about that driver? So I think that's definitely something we'd like to do in the future. No, I mean, from Codemasters' point of view at the moment, we're developing F1 2013 on Xbox 360, PS3 and PC. There's a department who's looking at sort of kind of tablet devices in terms of iPad, etc. But also as a company, obviously, we're beginning to turn our focus to look at next gen and what undertakings that might take from a company point of view in terms of reworks to Ego Engine, how we're going to get it to perhaps just work a little better with next generation technology. So that's going to involve quite a significant investment of tech guys, and they're already scratching their heads and looking at that now. Yeah, well, unfortunately the cars aren't even designed or anywhere near designed yet. Even in the factory, it's just kind of designs on a bit of paper. I mean, one thing that we definitely would like to do is trying to release the game earlier towards the start of the season, but of course, you know, you have to represent the sport as it is in the first race of the season in Melbourne, and then it literally takes months to build the cars and to get it all signed off and approved. But it's something that we would like to do. We certainly think that we might better bring it in, you know, a race or two, maybe bring it in combination with sort of this period of time that we're in now with the run up to Spa weekend. I think that's something that perhaps over the course of the next few years we can begin to bring it in. But there's also some benefits to releasing later in the season as well. You know, who would have thought that McLaren would be struggling as much as they are, and certain teams and drivers. So in order to make the game factually accurate as well, then you do need to watch at least a few races to progress and go past before you can kind of get the sort of race pattern. Otherwise the game's kind of a bit of a finger in the air guess at the start of a season. Yeah, I mean, that's something that I would very much like to do. I mean, that's very much a licensing issue. Even GP2, you know, they race the same circuits as Formula 1. It would be great to start off your career in GP2 and then work into GP1. It's not something that we're currently allowed to do as part of a box product. Whether we could do it in the future is maybe as a DLC, but then you're losing your sort of, you really want it to all tie into career. So it's not something that I can see that's going to happen in the foreseeable future, but we'll keep trying, because as gamers, that's exactly what you want. You want to start off maybe karting or touring car and then build up to your F1 career for sure.